All right, I'm pretty excited to show you guys today this new CMD HD-4000. It was produced by COREi64. It is a very faithful reproduction of an original CMD hard drive, which I also have right here. So I bought my original CMD HD-40 40 megabyte hard drive from CMD sometime in the mid-90s. It originally came with a 40 megabyte SCSI hard drive mechanism, and then I upgraded it around the end of the 90s to a 1 gigabyte mechanism, and then only recently, maybe 5-6 years ago, I replaced that drive because it was starting to make weird noises. I replaced it with a SCSI card that can take an SD card. I think it's called SCSI to SD. So I'm going to show you both of these drives to compare them, and then I'm going to take them apart. And in addition to just showing you what's on the inside, I actually have a reason for doing this. This is my daily driver. I use this drive all the time for all of my C64 OS development. But for the last couple of years, the RTC chip has been acting up, and it's kind of sporadic. Every so many months, it'll spend about a week where it's kind of touch and go as to whether a file will save with a correct date timestamp, and also it'll take several seconds, like it might take 30 seconds just to save a small file. And I believe that's because it's halting while trying to get data from the RTC. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the SCSI mechanism out of this drive, put it into this drive, so that I can get this drive repaired and I can continue to do all my work using this drive. So, to start with, this drive here the original is quite heavy compared to this one, which is, I don't know that it's half as light, but it's noticeably lighter. The reason I believe is entirely chalked up to the fact that the case on this drive is actually made of some kind of steel, whereas the case on this drive it's metal, but it's thinner, and I believe it's aluminum. So just take a listen to this. If I take my thumb and okay, you hear that? Now listen to this. Okay, now listen to this one again. That's because the metal on this one barely budges, right? It is as strong as an ox. This one, the aluminum clearly is more flexible, and it vibrates more and so on. But, you know, it's better than the 3D printed cases. So, these drives have several LEDs on the front panel. They have a swap 8 button, a swap 9 button, a write protect button, and a reset button. Of course, this drive has precisely the same LEDs and buttons. The LEDs are brighter though, quite a bit brighter, and so they tend to kind of bleed through the sticker in weird ways. I think that's not quite as good. The sides have the same profile and the same, they're very, very close to being the same height. They're very, very close to being the same dimensions in all ways. You see this little grill here, it's quite similar. And finally we go to the back panel. And classically, this drive has 2 serial ports, just like any regular disk drive has. The auxiliary port was intended to be used for hooking up a printer, and then the idea is that the drive would respond on device 4 or 5, pretending to be a printer, and then you would print to it, and it would very quickly buffer the print job into a special print partition, and then it would use the CPU inside this drive when it was not being used to spool the data slowly out to the printer. Unfortunately, CMD never completed that part of the DOS. There were some third-party work done on that, but as of the current DOS version that's available for this drive, the auxiliary port is not used for anything. The parallel port is this crazy DIN port here with a zillion pins. And the cable itself is actually really hard to come by. I happen to have one, but they go for a lot of money on eBay. This parallel port is used to connect the drive to a RAM link. And software that uses normal kernel routines gets greatly accelerated by the RAM link routing the access to the hard drive through the parallel port. Power port, it's the same on both drives. This drive did not come with a power supply. That's okay though, because I do have some 1541-2 power supplies and a 1581. I think I have two 1581 power supplies, and I'm using a 1581 power supply with this drive without any issue. They also have SCSI ports. These are 25 pin dB, sub dB 25 ports. Interestingly, they're actually quite useful because I happen to have a SCSI, an external SCSI CD-ROM drive from an old Mac, and it works brilliantly with these drives. There's software out there for reading PC formatted CDs, and you can, I think the program's called CD Commander. You can use it to navigate the CD and to copy data from the CD onto the hard drive. And you can also use SCSI commands to command the CD-ROM drive to play music CDs. So I'm hoping to support that in the near future with C64 OS. Okay, so let's, I guess we can look at the bottom panel as well. This drive here doesn't have a sticker like this sticker. It's a serial number plate, but I am informed that a reproduction of this sticker will be sent to me when it's ready, and then I'm going to stick it on the bottom so that it has that sort of authentic look. So let's open these drives. They're super easy to open. They're even easier than the HD-4000 was. It's basically just 4 screws. So we'll just remove those. And I've opened this drive many, many times. It's kind of modded on the inside a little bit, so. And I'm not very good, so please forgive my crappy RTC battery mod. The RTC battery on this guy died, and so I replaced it with a battery socket, but there wasn't really very much room, so I had to kind of mess around to get it to fit. So the first thing I'm going to show is that if you take, the screws are removed, but if you try to push this case backwards, it actually doesn't go. Okay, it doesn't go backwards. So when you push it forward, you slide it all the way off this way. And the reason that it doesn't go is because they soldered on these, or they welded on these little metal plates. So to put the case on, you have to kind of tilt it up like this, and then, and then it'll slide on. Okay, set that aside. And so here's what the drive looks like from the top. This here is the SCSI to SD. It's SCSI to SD version 5.1. And there's the SD card. And this mount that it's connected to was a mount that I purchased from COREi64. So that's kind of cool. They were selling these mounts before they were creating the actual reproduction CMD HD. So I'm going to remove the mount with my Allen key. Should be pretty straightforward. I'll just set, it's got a washer on it. Set these guys aside. Okay. Oh, look at that. I don't even have the washers on the other side. Or I don't even have the screws on the other side. I'm not sure why I did that. So, this is the mounted SCSI card. Pretty cool. Just remove the power, and we're going to remove the SCSI cable. Okay, so that's the SCSI board that I'm using in place of the old crufty mechanism. I'm just going to set that guy aside. So this is going to go into the new drive. Of course, I got to be very careful with that because it's got all my work on it. And this is the board. This is the original board, of course, and you can kind of see my my little battery replacement thing. It's kind of sitting askance and weirdly positioned, but it does the trick. This is the boot ROM. Now, some of the chips are socketed and some of them are not. So, you know, this guy's socketed, the CPU is socketed, but these other serial controllers are not socketed. Most of these chips are not socketed. And yeah, that's about it. It's very straightforward, just like a regular kind of Commodore drive. It does have this special front panel, which is pretty cool, connected via this cable to the main board. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the new drive, and we will see how it is different. Now, the CMD HD-4000, it used CMD HD-4000 used Allen or hex keys. What is going on here? Come on. Get that washer on the screw. So the HD-4000 used hex screws for everything. And it used kind of a newer power adapter. The CMD hard drive, on the other hand, is even maybe a little bit more classic in that it uses just normal screws. But man, it's easy to get into. As I said, I've gone in and looked at the inside of my original CMD hard drive many times. Now, the first thing, besides its weight, that's how lightweight it is, that I wanted to show you is you actually can slide this case in either direction. You can slide it that way, and you can slide it that way. You can tell just by the sound of it that the metal is vibrating more. It's making a kind of squeaky noise, because this thing is just as light as, like, this thing is feather light. I don't want to damage it or dent it or anything, but pretty cool. Maybe I'll stack that like that. So here we are. Here, in this case, I guess the drive mechanism's been mounted the other way around so that the cable can go on the underside. And it has a similar, slightly different 3D printed mount. And also the actual SCSI mechanism that this drive is using is different. It is a BlueSCSI. So it's using a Raspberry Pi as the guts of it. So I don't know. I don't know what the difference is, but yeah. So let's remove the hex bolts on this guy. Okay. There's one. I'm going to try and keep these guys separate here. I want to mix up my screws. And they only have to be kind of loosened using the Allen key, and then you can use your thumb, which is kind of nice. They've got little grippies for your thumb. So for example, just like that, I can start turning it with my thumb, which is nice. Last one. I know you impatient people out there on the internet, you youngins, like to skip this part of the video because apparently it's boring. So I like to talk to keep you entertained, keep you coming back for more. Honestly though, it takes such a short time. It takes me longer to edit the video than it does to open this thing. All right, so there's the board. I'm gonna remove this SCSI cable. And I'm gonna remove this power. Okay, so that's the BlueSCSI mechanism. You wanna see those side by side. Okay, pretty similar. Okay. And so here is the new board. Looks super duper shiny. God, it's so beautiful. Isn't that not just so beautiful? This cable here is held on with a much more reliable terminal header. The other one here used a connector that's done more in the style of like a dip chip socket, and the pins, in my opinion, I have unplugged it before, but putting them back in has always felt like I'm afraid I'm gonna bust a pin. So I feel like this is an improvement in this drive. This is a terminal header. You'll notice that every single chip is socketed without exception. Every chip, even these guys, the CPU, there's the boot ROM again, very nice, licensed and everything. The RTC is always included in this drive. So in the HD-4000, the RTC is a module. I guess it was probably originally a module when CMD sold it. It is always built into the CMD HD. And the battery has, rather than a battery that's just soldered right to the board like the original, and the original was like a big cylinder battery, this one has a flat, like dime style battery for a CR2032. And you know, that's really about it. I've pointed out before that the cables are like really nice. Like these cables are super flexible. This cable here is also just super flexible, and it feels silky smooth in your hands. It's really great. And Thomas at COREi64 he specifically said that, you know, he loves this sort of higher quality cabling and the higher quality boards and the hex screws, and you know, I don't blame him. It's phenomenal work, phenomenal. So now the only thing we have to do is we're going to mount this board here, and maybe I'll put this one in backwards as well. Clack, clack. Okay, so that's all that takes. And this cable is gonna go on what way? I think it'll only go on one way. Just let me just make sure that it will actually not go on the other way. Yeah, it will not. It will only go on one way. So I think we're safe. We're safe there. Okay. And now we're going to put the thumb screws. Gotta make sure they actually align. Okay, there we go. Ah yes, now I only actually had 2 for this one. So I'm gonna leave it as 2. Maybe I'll put one on this side. Maybe I'll put one on this kitty corner side here. If I can get it to line up. There we go. Again, the thumb screw, man, the thumb twist does basically the whole job. Just use that to tighten it a little. And that should be it. It's pretty great, right? That should do it. So now I'm gonna put this case back on. Again, for this one, we don't have to tip it in any special way. You can hear that deafening squeak because the metal is... Now, I guess I will complain a little bit, just, you know, for the sake of having something to say. Because the metal is thinner, and because there are no extra bits on the inside of this case that hold this plate, I feel like, you know, pushing too hard on this plate kind of feels like if you push it really hard, I feel like you could bend the metal and push it in. That's unfortunate. But, you know, we'll live. We'll live. Okay, let's put these screws back together. Time for the impatient people to skip the video. I find working with retro electronics to be very soothing, to be perfectly honest. The software is simpler, the hardware is simpler, everything's easier to understand, and everything's a lot less frustrating. Even putting screws in is fun. Okay. One last screw, and we have literally swapped our mechanisms. Okay, so this is now going to become my daily driver, and this drive now needs to take the new mechanism. So I kind of liked how he oriented that with the cable on the underside. I'm going to see if I can do that for this one. Cable's a little stiffer, but we'll see if we can do it with this one. Oh yeah, that is better. Cable on the bottom feels better. Much better. That's cool. All right, and maybe I can even tuck that guy underneath. Yeah, I think I can. Okay, and before I put that in, I'm going to attach this cable. Again, I believe it'll only go in one direction. Is that the direction? Ooh, interesting. 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 So it will only go on, hope you can all see this, it'll only go on this way, but it's bending the clip back. Yeah. Ooh. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. Don't think there's anything I can do about that. So green is ground. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. I don't prefer it, but I think it'll work. All right. All right. Time to put these guys back together. There's one. Let me put this one in over here first. Make sure everything... What's going on here? Okay, hang on. This might be the result of my battery socket. It is the result of my battery socket. Okay, I remember why I didn't put in the other screws onto this side, because that battery socket that I soldered in, which is right here, the socket could not sit flush to the board because there were other components that were nearby, so I had to solder it lift it up from the board, and the problem is that it gets in the way slightly of this guy here. So unfortunately, I'm unable to screw down both sides. The good news is that this thing is so lightweight, and it is so it's held sufficiently securely by the one side that I don't think it really makes a big deal. So maybe I'll use those other thumb screws back in that drive later. I'll do it off the video. And that is basically where we're at. That is the new mechanism in there. So we'll just put on the case here, so. Again, for this one, you gotta lift it up like this. Okay, and now listen as it slides on. It sounds heavier, right? The metal sounds heavier. Okay, we'll just drop our screws in and we're done. Hope you enjoyed seeing what the inside of a CMD hard drive looks like. To my knowledge, you cannot simply place an order for this drive yet, or at all. He is not taking orders for drives that are not already built. So you can get on a wait list or a waiting list, and then when the drive is available, he'll take your money and ship it to you. But he doesn't want to get into the situation that somebody else got into, taking pre-orders for hardware that can't be fulfilled. And I think that is a very wise decision. And if you're interested in one of these drives, it's a fantastic piece of hardware. And you can go to COREi64.com and check out the wait list for it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.